Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to draw this lovely portrait of a bear with a little bit of meadow, grass, and flowers in the background. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to demonstrate how to do a scratch art technique. And that's the technique that I used to finish this bear with. So if you're at home and you don't have the supplies to do scratch art, you can always just fill in your bear and color it in or paint it in any way you'd like. The supplies you'll need if you're going to be doing the scratch art design is a simple craft stick, or this could also be substituted for bamboo skewers, toothpicks, anything with a little point to it that's going to hold up and be able to scratch the surface of the paint. You can even do trial and error of just odds and ends that you have around the house. A permanent black marker, a set of oil pastels, and some kind of a heavier paper to use. And it's nicer to have a paper with a little bit of a tooth, which is a texture. You could use a mat board. Sometimes the mat boards even come with a little textured tooth on it as well. Inside a cereal box works, or just a piece of cardboard. The heavier the paper, the better. To get started, we're going to start in the center of our paper, and I have mine horizontal. And in the center, I'm just going to put my finger here, and I'm going to go off to the center, just right next to it, and put a small mark. This is going to be the center of the nose, so I'm just going to curve it out a little bit, the highlight inside the nose. Curving down, curve down, and connect. And notice it's kind of a free-form shape. This will be the white spot in the center of the bear's nose. Now I'm going to draw an oval going around. I start off with a simple horizontal line directly above the white spot, and I'm just going to curve around it as close and nice and neat as I can. These shapes it's okay if they're not exactly perfect, because if you look at the scratch art technique, there's a lot of room for error. That means you can make mistakes, and the lines really won't matter much, because we're going to be covering this with oil pastel, and then we're also going to be covering it with black. So you can see my original black lines here. You could really barely see them. So don't worry if your shape isn't exactly like mine. It's going to come out great in the end. Now I'm going to do a number 1. And I'm going to come down and over. I didn't go way down. Look, it's not very far. This is going to form the mouth. Down, over. And then from here, I'm just going to do 2 lines. 1, 2. Look at this. It's above the nose. This is just my guidelines. Then I'm going to just go back and forth, back and forth. Connect it. I didn't quite connect it exactly, which is okay. Now on each side here, I'm going to jump over and just put a dot. This is going to be the center where I want my eye. I'm going to jump over, not quite even a finger. Well, probably a finger. Right there. Whoops. There. You see where I made a mistake? Ignore it. Just put it right where you need it. Like I said, a little line like this isn't going to matter. Now we're going to turn this into a small circle, just like that. So now my little mistake is going to be hidden because I'm going to color that in. Just going to roughly color that in. This is where you can adjust things. If they're not exactly the same, or maybe you want to move one in a little bit more than the other, just bring it over a little bit more. So I'm adjusting these little shapes. There we go. So there's the center black spots of the eyes. Now I'm just going to come around this and around this. This will be the whites of the eyes. And then I want some lighter color around the eye, the actual eye. So I'm just going to come up and around again and down here. I don't even need to connect it fully. Up and around, right in. So I have the eyes placed. Now I'm going to give a little chin. And then we're going to do the shape of the head. The head is going to come a number 1 here and a number 1 here. And then we can kind of bulge out a little bit, give him a cheek, and then come back. Give him a cheek. So the cheek, you just come out a little bit and then curve around. Now I do want 2 little ears here, and I'm going to have them coming toward the left, and then I want them tilting toward the right. So I'm going to come up from the top of my page. Let's bring it down so you can see it a little bit better. And I want to do an ear placement. So I'm going to go, there's going to be one on this side. That's going to be the side of his head. Notice I'm jumping up from the eye here. Here's the eye, jump up. Here's the eye, jump up. And I'm going to do a diagonal line. So that's where my ears are going to go. So I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to come out. So these are diagonal lines. Then I can just curve around. Up, diagonal, out, diagonal, and then curve around. And then we're just going to simply connect it, and connect it. We're just kind of roughing in the ears. If you want to add the center of the ears, up, around, and back, you can. And now I'm going to go a little bit below the neck, a little bit below the mouth, rather. Down with a slight curve. And I'm going to give the back of my bear. So I'm going to come from the face here, just come right, curve it right down to the very edge of your page. And there is my bear. Now, I always look at my bear and I think, oh, it looks a little funny. But once you put in the background, and that's what happened when I did this bear. My bear, I said, he looks a little funny. But once you add the background and all the other colors and lines, it's going to transform your bear into something amazing. You just have to have faith in yourself. So now, let's add some of those background lines. So we're going to start up here for one leaf. I'm going to curve down. And these are big, bold shapes. That way we don't have a lot to draw, and we'll give some interesting space for coloring in. Now I'm going to come back down again. Right there. And that way I can give some nice contrasting color to the leaf with a bright stem. And a contrasting color is a color that's opposite each other on the color wheel. Now we're going to come down, down, and we're going to come around. See how it's curved to the bottom? I come around, right to the bottom. So those are our leaf shapes. Let's get another leaf in here. Let's make it really tall. Give it a stem, and when I do this, I come back real thin and slow, like so. And now I'm going to come down and out, down, out, and back. And I'll do the same on the other side. It doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical either. Down, out, it can overlap, and back. Now, we want to fill in this with some interesting pattern here. Let me show you how I did mine. See how I did a kind of a zigzag pattern? So I'm going to start on the line, and I'm going to go diagonally up, diagonally down. If you look here, let me show you. When I turn it sideways, looks like a triangle. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And you do the same at the bottom, but opposite. Diagonally down. And I have them connect where they meet. So if this one starts here, I'm going to start the bottom one there. This one's here, come across opposite. So take your time, and this is called craftsmanship, when you take your time and make something nice and neat. Now you can always finish these on your own after the video stops playing. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And I do it in a continuous line. And this line is actually called a zigzag line. And then I can do the same here. This leaf is at a different perspective, so these appear to be a little bit wider. And I'm connecting it and ending it at the same spot right here. You just take your time and go slow. Now you can add some fancy wildflowers if you want. And I basically just do large circular shapes, just like that, freeform circular shapes. And I'll put a dot in the middle. You want to do a dot in the middle, do your big shape around it, you can. And when artists do things, they like to do them in groups of odd numbers. So 3, 5, 7. So there's 3 together. And you can do some stems if you'd like. It breaks up this space a little bit better. There's a stem for this one right here. Now we can even do some leaves down here. That'll break up this space. Curve line. He's like behind the bushes. Give my stem. There's a nice giant leaf. Zigzag. And of course it's your picture, so you can add, more leaves as you'd like. Grasses, flowers, your own kind of flowers. You want to even add a giant bee to it, you can. I might even turn this space into another leaf. I'm going to come down and add a leaf right here. I'm playing off of that curve on his body. That way I have leaves that overlap. I can even make the other side of his body right here. See how I can adjust my picture? Make him a little bit thicker. And then I want some tall, curving grasses or leaves behind here. So come on up, curve, keep it pointed, and then we come down. Depending on how much space you have on this side, you can add more flowers, more leaves, things that you would like. Here I had more space at the top, so I added a few little leaves coming from the top as well, like he's tucked into the bushes, right in here. And now I'm just going to connect this line here and down and around here. That way I have a division for color. And to color it in, what you want to do is you want to go, let me bring it in real close so you can see. You want to have it a complete coverage. So you don't want it to be just a light coverage like this. You want it to be a nice layer of oil pastel, so a nice solid coverage. I can give some stripes in here even, and then I can come back with a darker value and go right on top. When you're coloring, you want to choose light, bright colors. If you're going to be following my scratch art technique, we're going to be painting this entirely with black paint. And if you don't do light, bright colors, once you scratch it off, there won't be a lot of contrast between the black and the colors, so it won't show up as well. See the nose? How I did some dark brown. It's not as interesting as if you were to do it. If you were to do it in the light, bright colors, it's much more interesting for the contrast between dark and light. So choose light, bright colors over your darkest values and have complete coverage. I also don't rub it with my finger because I'm upsetting the surface and smearing the surface, and when I apply some acrylic paint on top, the acrylic paint will tend to stick to that surface instead of scratching off. So we don't want to smear this with our fingers. You can blend and smear if you need to blend and smear colors, just simply with another color on top. Let's see if I want to blend color like this. And then I actually use my oil pastel as a blending tool to smear that if you want to create some darker or lighter values of that color. So to use your color, when you do your oil pastel, choose light, bright colors. Don't blend or smear with your fingers, and cover the surface completely. Notice I'm going back over this, back and forth, to get a complete coverage of color. I never really smash the color either. And if I have extra buildup or little crumbs here, I just kind of rub those in to my surface of the paper. And the paper I'm using now is just an inexpensive watercolor paper because it's a little bit heavier than regular paper. And it also has that tooth that I was talking about, which means a texture to the surface. I'll color lightly and you can really see it when I color lightly. There's the texture of that paper. Even a watercolor board works good. But like I said, if you don't have this papers at home, you can always use, if you don't have heavy paper, inside of a cracker box or inside of a cereal box. That would work too. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish this now using light, bright colors. Complementary colors work great too, because then once we're done, they create a big color pop and some vibrations of color. So if you look on your color wheel, the colors that are opposite each other will look great. They create vibrance and they make each other look better. Like this red and green together is complementary. And so the green helps enhance that color of red, and it also helps make the green look better as well when I put it next to red. It makes each other look the best. Although you do have to be careful, because if you notice here, when you mix complementary colors, I just got some red in my green here. Complementary colors create brown when you mix them. So you do have to be careful on that. That's why we do a nice, thick, bold black line. It helps separate these colors as well. And when I have a lot of the crumb buildup, I kind of just rub it into the paper. I twist my paper. I twist the oil pastel and then I just rub it in. And again, when you make little mistakes, say if this is a mistake right there, once your item is finished and covered, and you've colored it all black and scratched it all off, a little mistake isn't going to matter much. It's not going to make much of a difference. When you step back and look at the whole picture, it's not that important. So we need to realize that mistakes can easily be covered up and fixed, and we can live with little tiny mistakes. It's not worth scratching your whole paper and throwing it away. Okay, so I'm going to continue then making my scratch art picture and adding colors, and I'll show you the next step once I get this completed. Once you have your paper all covered with oil pastel, including the white areas, this was done with a white oil pastel, then you're ready to apply the acrylic coat on top. Now, if you did not do this with oil pastels, then you can just leave your picture the way it is. But if you are going to use the scratch art technique, then you want to use an acrylic paint, and this is a very inexpensive acrylic paint. The less expensive paint, the better, so you don't want a real expensive quality. And then I place it into a little cup like this, and I thin it down so that it pours pretty thick. Let me pour some on here so you can see the consistency. So when I pour it, let's see if you can see the consistency. It's a pretty thick consistency still coming out. It's not real thin. But you are going to spread it, and I'm going to be using just a very soft bristle brush because I don't want to gouge or scratch the oil pastel. So when you're brushing, you just want to add very thin coat to this. You don't want it real thick. If it starts to resist, then you want to add a little bit more of the paint. You just want a nice even coverage. You don't want it to have strokes showing and streaks like that. You want a nice solid even coverage, but you do not want thick areas or puddles, I call them. Raised up areas. Just a nice thin even coat. It's perfectly fine if you can see through the paint. Let's see if you can see it. It's a little shiny. That'll help you when you are scratching your design. So it's okay if we can see through the paint. You just want a nice even coverage. For example, I can see through that white, which is fine. I'm going to be scratching most of it off anyways. So you want to continue this for your entire paper. Once the scratch art has dried, then what you're going to do is you're going to trace all your edges just to give you a little bit of a bearing on where everything is. And sometimes it's hard to see the edges. It's okay if you're off a little bit, because as you scratch, then you will end up finding them eventually anyways. And I'm just lightly scratching in the surface first, and I just trace around my edges. And you want to do that for your entire picture. Get all of your outlines done. As you pick up some crumbs, you want to kind of just leave the crumbs and ignore them. And then when you have a little pile, I just kind of tap my paper and keep them in a little stacked pile here. And then I will scoop them up and bring them into the trash barrel. So I'm going to finish all my edges and I'll show you what it looks like. Now that all of the areas are outlined, then you can start your scratching. So when you're scratching, you can scratch in textures, you can scratch in patterns. Starting at the top, go down, sideways. And when you scratch, your goal is not to take every drop of black paint off. You want to leave some of these lines showing, these directional lines. So it's important to scratch in an interesting direction. So I start at the top, come down. I scratch kind of in a fan pattern for the leaves. And then for the fur, this will be my border here of the leaves. And then the fur, I'm doing it in a direction of the fur, the way the fur grows and flows, all in one direction of curve. And then where this meets the head, I don't have to scratch as much, and I can leave more black showing. Or I can scratch very lightly, so some of it will come off. And that creates a darker value of color over there. So I can leave more black paint, and then where I want my picture to be a little bit lighter, I can scratch off more black paint. So in this area, I'm not going to scratch off as much. And here I want it to be lighter, so I scratch off more. So for the short fur around his face, I do little short lines. Some in the middle, straight up. Then they curve toward the eyes, curve toward the eyes. So these are directional lines going in a certain direction. Middle, then curve it short, short to the eye, short, short to the eye. And I can lay on top of each other and just kind of scratch lightly. And we're picking up interesting texture by doing this. Show you what it looks like. Like so. And then the eyes, we have the center I left black. And then I scratch out the whites of the eyes. Let's go ahead and add the fur too as it goes around. You can add your own pattern too. If you want to have it come out straight, that's fine. And then when I do my background, I'll bring it down here so you can see the edge here. I tend to do my background all in one direction. So I'm just doing horizontal to the right marks as I scratch off. And again, I do not scratch off all of the black. Let me show you what it looks like up close. You want to leave some of that showing. To create the flowers, what I do is kind of a radial design. I start with the center, and then I bring out my lines to the edges of the flower. And I just go across, coming out from the center, all around. Once I have an area done, then I just go back over the black line to bring that out. What you don't want to do is scribble like this. That's going to give you some unattractive lines and create some unattractive patterns. You notice that this is all done in the same direction. It's that curving line. And then when I do my leaves, they're done in that fan shape pattern here. Let me show you again. You start at the top, come out and down. So the black lines are in the right direction. That's important. And then if you notice the background, you see how it's all just in that neat one direction. And that helps create unity of the whole picture. And then the flowers come in that radial design. So my lines are in that direction. They radiate out from the center point. And that's what creates this beautiful effect here. So the scratching direction is very important. I'm going to give you a close-up of the background direction. So I'm doing it in one horizontal direction, and I do it several times on top of each other. Let's even get closer. And then you notice how it's revealing some of this leaf that I missed. I just go back and trace the leaf edge to bring back my leaf, the black line of the leaf. I'm going to finish scratching this off and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. And here is the completed bear picture. I just wanted to show you an overview of how it came out. And the complementary red really looks great with that green. It gives a little pop of color. And I love the purple background with this too, because the purple complements the bright yellow here in the picture. Let's look at some close-ups. Again, it's all scratched off in the direction. The fur all goes in one area. And then the green is fanned out. It fans out here. And you can see how the background is all in that one direction as well. Let me show you some of these flowers close up. And you can see how the black is left, some of the black, because our goal is not to take all of it away. And where you want to create things a little bit more shadow, you leave more of the black showing. Like under his chin, like so. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And be sure to hit the like button, and if you'd like to become a patron and support this channel, just click on the title of the video and it will take you to my Patreon account. And I want to give a big shout out to all those who have already subscribed.